Hello and welcome back to another session of Karen's Colours. I'm Dr. Karen and these are my colour conversations. This week I'm going to be looking at another one of these film colour analyses, and this time the film is Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction was a film made in 1994, written and co-directed by Quentin Tarantino. He is renowned for his particular style of filmmaking, which features a lot of language, a lot of drug use, and portrayals of violence. And this film is no exception. First of all, I'd like to welcome back those of you who have been watching my videos. Thank you for your interest, and I hope that this one will also tend to pique your curiosity. For those of you who've only just found me, well, this is a hodgepodge of all sorts of things to do with colour analysis, whether it be personality, films, or even just the way in which we speak to one another. So if this is your first time here, you're doubly welcome. You might like to hit that like button, maybe even subscribe if you're so inclined. It will help the channel grow, as YouTube doesn't seem to respond to anything else except those sorts of markers. So let's get into it. As I said, Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction is a film that has a number of trigger warnings. My usual practice in these analyses is to go through the plots to begin with, so that those of you who haven't actually seen the film have some idea of what transpires. Then I look at the individual colours, and in this film I'm going to look at them in the sequence in which they were created, because the film itself does not follow in chronological order. It is what is known as asynchronous, that is, out of time. There are certain events that happen before other events, but they are portrayed afterwards. And so we need to keep that in mind as we go through and do the analysis. The film itself features a fair degree of poor language, so if you're easily triggered by that, perhaps don't watch the film. I certainly won't be using that language in this analysis. There is also drug use and a portrayal of an overdose. There is violence, which is primarily associated with the use of guns, but it also includes portrayal of a sexual assault. Most of the violence that is alluded to in the film is not actually seen as such. You see the aftermath, and you certainly see very short glimpses of what is happening, but you don't see all of the gory bits, which is probably one of the reasons why this is one of my favourite all-time films. So let's get started with the narrative. There are three main stories in Pulp Fiction. There are some partial overlaps, and there are different points of view in which the various aspects of the film are presented to you. There are 7 narrative sequences, and they do not follow in chronological order. There are 3 main characters. The first of these is Vincent Vega. He is involved in all 7 of the plot lines, excepting the very first one, where he doesn't appear at all. But in some way or another, he is involved as the main character. The second character that features here is Butch Coolidge, a prize fighter whose story interlinks with that of Vince Vega's in a very short period of time, but basically they have different storylines altogether. The third major character is Jules Winfield. Now, Jules is Vincent's partner in crime, if you can call it that. He has a minor storyline, but he is also very important to the plot because he is the person upon whom Vincent's story bounces. So let's look firstly at the various narratives. The first of the narratives is also linked to the last of them. That is, 1 and 7 are the same scenes. They're taken from different points of view, and while the first one follows the last one sequentially, they are important in that they link the beginning and the end of the film together, although not the beginning and the end of the characters' trajectories. We see here firstly 2 characters. This is Pumpkin, and here we have Honey Bun. These 2 characters are in a diner, and they are planning to rob the place at gunpoint. In the epilogue, that is narrative 7, There is also a standoff between Pumpkin and Jules, which causes Jules to resolve the issues of the robbery and to also make sure that no one is killed, and Pumpkin and Honeybun leave with what they came for, and at the same time, so do Jules and Vincent. The clothing that we see on Jules is continuous with narrative 6, and its importance we will note later on. In narrative 2, we find Vincent and Jules travelling towards an apartment building where they are discussing their upcoming problem that they need to resolve, and also Jules is having a fair amount of fun at Vincent's expense because Vincent has been asked to do a special favour for their boss, who is named Marcellus. Jules takes the lead in what follows. Firstly, break into the apartment and then intimidating the young man, Brett, for whom they have come. Brett has taken a suitcase that belongs to Marcellus, and although he was supposed to deliver it to Marcellus, he's failed to do so, and so now both Jules and Vincent have been sent to correct that error. Next we see, in narrative 2, a scene whereby the back of Marcellus's head can be shown as he's talking to Butch. Butch, the prize fighter, is being bribed to take a fall in his next fight. And as that conversation proceeds, both Jules and Vincent lounge against the bar and watch the proceedings. Narrative 3 is broken into a number of sequences. In the first part of the narrative, Vincent visits his dealer, who gives him an option of 3 different types of heroin. Vincent makes his choice and then proceeds to shoot up in Lance's apartment. He then proceeds to go and carry out the special job he had from Marcellus, and that is to take Marcellus's wife on a dinner outing. They go to a 1950s themed restaurant and sit in a special car. Mia, Marcellus's wife, demands that they both enter into a dance competition, which of course they win, and return back to their house. Mia, wearing Vincent's coat, then finds the packet of heroin in his pocket and mistakes it for cocaine and takes a snort. This causes an overdose, which Vincent finds, and then takes Mia on a dash back to the dealer's house in order to find some way of recovering her. Lance guides Vincent through the process of doing a cardio puncture with an adrenaline-laced needle, and once the adrenaline has been injected directly into her heart, Mia instantly recovers and they both leave. Back home at Mia's house, they agree to part company and never speak of the issue again. We then switch to narrative 4, and here in a historic view, Butch is presented with a watch from his dead father by his father's army buddy. Present-day Butch has double-crossed Marcellus and won the prize fight, in the process killing his opponent. So he tries to escape, and he's driven to a motel by a Latina taxi driver who seems to be quite fascinated in his exploits. At the motel, Butch joins his girlfriend Fabienne, and after a night of pleasure, they wake in the morning and discover that Fabienne has forgotten to pack Butch's prized gold watch. So he takes a circuitous route back to the apartment, being very careful to avoid any contact with people in order to retrieve the gold watch. He finds the watch, puts it on his arm, then he also discovers a gun in his kitchen. He hears a noise from the bathroom, and when the door opens, there is Vincent. Butch fires the gun and kills him. This now brings us to narrative 5, where, having now escaped damage, Butch is driving back towards the motel, singing a song, and stops at a pedestrian crossing where Marcellus happens to be walking across. The two recognize each other. Butch attempts to run Marcellus down, but in the process crashes his own car, and Marcellus recovers with the aid of some passers-by. Butch, also recovering, then attempts to flee, and the two of them enter a pawnbroker's shop where they are held up by the pawnbroker himself. This man, Maynard, holds them at gunpoint and knocks Vincent out, and then he calls for backup. We next see Butch and Marcellus tied up with mouth gags in place. Maynard's accomplice Zed has arrived. He then, through conversation, chooses which victim he's going to use first and takes Marcellus into another room. Butch manages to free himself and is about to escape when his better nature takes over, and he returns to rescue Marcellus, kills Maynard and frees Marcellus, who then takes it upon himself to organize retribution. As well, the two men agree to part company and say no more about it, which means that Butch is no longer in fear of Marcellus. He then leaves on Zed's bike, picks up Fabienne, and they leave the area. We now move to narrative 6, and here we find a different point of view. A man is holed up inside a bathroom. He is armed. He overhears Vincent and Jules undertaking the recovery of the briefcase in the room next door. He dashes out of the room and fires at both Jules and Vincent, missing them entirely. Jules is amazed at what he perceives to be divine intervention, and they shoot the intruder and then leave. As they leave, they take from Rhett's apartment the other man, Marvin, who has been a plant by Marcellus in Rhett's organization. As Jules turns to talk to Marvin, he accidentally shoots him, splattering blood all over the interior of the car. Jules drives them to a friend's place. The friend is Jimmy, who is not very pleased to see them at all, and informs them of the likelihood of his wife's imminent arrival from her work in the local hospital. They ring Marcellus for advice, and Marcellus sends Mr. Wolf, the cleaner, who organizes for what is going to happen to disposing of the body and the car and undertaking to restore all the damage that has been done. After having cleaned the car, Mr. Wolf orders Jules and Vincent to go outside where they are given a shower, and then they take the car to junkyard for disposal. Which brings us now to narrative 7. We're now back at the diner, and Vincent excuses himself to go to the men's room. Meanwhile, the robberies begins, and Jules prepares his gun, ready to defend himself. He manages to overpower Pumpkin. He is given all of Jules's money, and he and Honeybun then leave the diner, after which Jules and Vincent similarly leave. All right, let's now move on to the colour analysis for this film. The focus of a colour analysis is primarily on the main character's clothing. The supporting character's clothing is also looked at as it is needed in the plot, and ancillary characters such as those within the diner, the restaurant, the crash scene are not included at all. Some ambience colours are also important to a colour analysis because they can add to the mood, particularly when the character colours are fairly minimalist. There is a frequency of colours that occurs. The one that is seen most often is red, followed by orange, blue, brown, pink, yellow, green, purple, and then we get a combination of black and white, then white alone, then grey, then a combination of red, white and blue, and then finally, in only one costume, is black on its own. Let's now examine these in order of frequency, bearing in mind that I will be looking at them in the order in which they occur. The first of these colours is red. The first indication of red we have is of a car that is parked outside of the apartment building where Vincent and Jules are headed towards Brett's apartment. As they enter the apartment lobby, we have more red, both in the carpet and also in the lounge. The next predominant red scene is the one in the bar where Marcellus is bribing Butch to take a fall in his next fight. Then we see red in the syringe where Vincent is shooting up, followed by Mia's red lips as she talks into the microphone, watching Vincent as he wanders around her apartment. Vincent also drives a red car. Once Mia has overdosed, we see Vincent on a panic drive passing a red car, and a red pen is used to mark the spot into which the injection to save Mia's life will be driven. Our next shot of red is rather dull, but it's the red of the bed in which Butch and his girlfriend Fabienne spend the night. We also see another red car parked outside of the building that Butch has to go back to retrieve his gold watch. Then we see Vincent himself covered in red as he is shot to death. Red is also the colour of the balls that are put in the mouth gags of Butch and Marcellus, and Butch is liberally covered in red blood as he frees himself from bondage. When Vincent kills Marvin accidentally, the entire interior of the car, including its occupants, are splattered in red blood. We also see Jimmy wearing a red dressing gown, being very upset at the arrival of Jules and Vincent to his house with a bloodied car and a corpse inside. When Vincent and Jules are cleaning the car, there is a liberal amount of blood splattered around. And finally, just before their shower in the garden, Vincent and Jules are invited to take off their red blood spattered clothes. So what does this tell us about the colour red? It tells us that every time red is seen, there is some form of action that is dangerous and it is in progress. It's not about to happen. It has already happened or is happening at the time of its appearance. The next most prominent colour we see is orange. Here we see the menu that Mia is reading as she challenges Vincent to become a better conversationalist. The dealer's tray, bottle cap, and also the box of cereal that he has next to him are all orange, while he is trying very hard to ignore Vincent's urgent phone call. The interior of the house in which Butch is presented with the gold watch from his father's partner has orange curtains and an orange glow about it altogether. There are also orange stripes in Butch's t-shirt. And then we have orange curtains in the motel where Butch and Fabienne are getting ready for bed. In the morning, Butch sports an orange towel after he's had his shower. And then we see Marcellus in an orange shirt just after he has been run down and is now about to accost Butch. Then, of course, the orange continues, this time liberally splattered with red. After he has been freed by Butch, we also see orange on the building of the motel that Butch and Fabienne are now leaving. The armed man waiting in Brett's apartment and overhearing the conversation that is happening in the next room is hiding inside an orange painted room. Vincent is redressed in a white and orange t-shirt after he has done the cleanup, and we can see also that they are standing outside of an orange-coloured building as Mr. Wolf gives them their final instructions about returning the briefcase. Jules is also wearing orange-coloured shorts and carries the briefcase as they leave the yard where the car has been crushed. These shorts become most prominent as we can see Jules preparing his gun underneath the table at the diner when the robbery is in progress. And finally, also, we see orange flowers in the background as Jules chides and lectures Pumpkin about how to run his life. So what then are the lessons to be learned from the use of orange in this film? In every case, orange appears as a potential alarm or potential danger that needs to be either overcome or averted. Let's now move on to blue. In both the opening and closing sequences, we can see that Pumpkin is wearing blue jeans, and although he has a patterned shirt on, it is primarily blue as well. We see a blue sky taken from the view of the boot of the car, where Vincent and Jules are about to take their armory out to go and confront Brett in his apartment. The blue T-shirt that Jules has been given is prominently displayed in the barroom scene as they await their turn to approach Marcellus with the briefcase. Mia has written a note for Vincent in blue ink that she leaves outside of her apartment, inviting him to come inside and make himself a drink. At the restaurant where Vincent and Mia are about to engage in a dance, the ambience colour of the stage is primarily blue, which gives a distinct appearance to that whole scene. Then we have blue light in the scene where Vincent takes Mia on that mercy dash to revive her. And we also see Butch taking off his blue jeans as he prepares for bed after having escaped from the match. He wears those same blue jeans as he moves towards his own apartment building to retrieve his watch. And we find also that Zed, the person who assaults Marcellus, is wearing a blue shirt. And if you look closely, you'll notice that he has police insignia. Fabian appears in a blue jacket as she and Butch make their escape from the motel. And we also see Vincent carrying a blue cup when they arrive at Jimmy's house. As part of the change of costume, Jules is expected to wear a blue T-shirt, whereas Vincent gets a pair of blue shorts. And wearing those same costumes, they leave the restaurant very carefully, close together, pretending that everything is normal. So what are the lessons to be learnt from the appearance of colour blue? In each and every case, there are plans and strategies that need to be discussed or have to be indicated in some way. Let's now move on to brown. Vincent wears a brown coat and his dealer has a brown jacket as they decide just which of the different types of heroin Vincent is going to purchase. The injecting gear that the dealer loans to Vincent so he can use the drugs are kept in a brown pouch. After they have won the dance competition, Mia wears that brown coat back into her apartment, and after her recovery, she wears a brown tee to say goodbye to Vincent. The interior of Butch's childhood home is also coloured brown, and brown features prominently on his clothing as well. The dress that Fabienne wears while she's waiting for Butch to return from his prize fight is brown, and so is the jacket that Butch puts on in the morning to go and retrieve his watch. As Butch drives Fabienne's car towards his apartment, he passes a brown wall. Still clad in that brown jacket, he negotiates his way past a neighbour's washing to get to the back of his apartment. In his brown kitchen, he discovers the gun. And finally, we see brown on the jacket of the customer in the restaurant who is trying very hard not to notice the two oddly clad gunmen walking behind him. So what then is the lesson to be learned from brown? Brown always appears when there is a new challenge to be met and some problem solving that needs to be done immediately. Pink is also a very prominent colour in this film. In both the opening and closing narratives, we see pink as the decor within the diner. A visitor in Brett's apartment is lying on a pink pillow, and the entry to Marcellus's office is also painted pink. There is artwork in the dealer's home and also in Mia's home that prominently features pink. And when Butch sneaks past the neighbour's washing to go towards his apartment, where he passes a pink dress and a pink sheet or towel that is hanging on the line. When Marcellus is walking across the pedestrian crossing in front of Butch, he's carrying a pink box. Butch runs along a pink coloured wall. And inside the pawnbroker's shop, there is a pink display cabinet. Back in the diner, we find the lighting has changed and the pink appears to be much darker than it was previously. But once they leave the diner, it's back to the same colour it was at the beginning of the film. So the lesson to be garnered from all these pinks is that each and every one of them offers an unplanned opportunity for something to happen. Yellow is the next colour of note in our sequence. The first yellow we see is just a tiny hint of a car parked outside of Brett's apartment as Jules and Vincent approach it. Then we see yellow displayed more prominently on Butch's jacket and also on his trainer's shirt. Butch pays a taxi driver in a yellow cab to take him to what appears in the background to be a yellow motel. Inside the motel room, there are yellow and orange curtains. In the morning, when Butch returns to his own apartment building, we see that it too is painted yellow. And there are yellow signs on the pawnbroker's window as Butch leaves. Jules is drinking from a yellow cup after he gets to Jimmy's house with the corpse in tow. And Jimmy himself has yellow prominently displayed around a mirror behind him, but also as stripes on his cup and a small object on the bench next to him. Finally, Marcellus is wearing a yellow top when he receives the call from Jules about the accidental shooting. So what then are the lessons to be learned from the colour yellow? In each case, yellow indicates an opportunity for planning and strategizing. And every single time it appears, there is some sort of discussion going on about what is going to happen next. Let's turn now to green. Inside Brett's apartment, the walls are painted green. We find a number of green plants that lead the way to Mia's door. And the dealer is wearing a green dressing gown when he's trying very hard to ignore Vincent's call. The dealer runs outside in his green dressing gown across a green lawn, berating Vincent for having come to his house. There are green lights behind the pawnbroker as he holds Butch and Marcellus hostage. When the intruder from the bathroom shoots at Jules and Vincent, we can see the bullet holes in the green wall. Jimmy's house also has green associated with it. There are the bushes outside the glass door, but he also has green objects featured on his benches. In each case that green appears, there is some sort of post-activity evaluation, and usually it's a critical evaluation, something that the protagonists regard as being a difficulty that needs to be addressed in some way. Moving on to purple now. The first purple we see is in Honeybun's dress. It also appears in both the image at the dealer's house, but also in the artwork at Mia's house. It's interesting that both these artworks feature purple and pink. Marvin, the young man who is eventually killed accidentally, is also wearing a purple shirt. And here we see Honeybun again, this time in a high state of distress as she attempts to prevent Vincent from hurting Pumpkin. The lesson to be learnt from the appearance of purple is that each person who is associated with it has some sort of high stress situation that needs to be put into a form of control. Black and white feature separately, but they also feature together. And so I have separated them out as separate colours for analysis. When we first come across Jules and Vincent, they are wearing very formal-looking black suits and white shirts. The interior of Mia's home is also very much black and white. And when we see Mia at first, we notice that she has black hair and is wearing a white shirt. Similarly, Fabienne's outfit is also white shirt and black hair. Finally, we find when Mr. Wolf, the cleaner, arrives, he's also wearing black and white. This is a more formal version of the black and white worn by Vincent and Jules in the background. And the lesson to be garnered from the appearance of black and white together is that here we have some form of balance, some form of control, and some form of unassuming dominance. White on its own, on the other hand, has a slightly different story to tell. The first major white object we see is Fabienne's car as Butch drives it towards his apartment. We also see it on Bonnie, who is Jimmy's wife, in her hypothetical return from work. When Vincent is redressed, he's given a white t-shirt to wear, and he also finds himself hiding inside a white bathroom for a period of respite from Jules's epiphany. The final appearance of white on its own occurs as Vincent walks extremely closely behind Jules when they leave the diner. And the lesson from all these appearances of white on their own, the protagonists are overcoming some form of potential challenge. Grey would be the next most frequently used colour, and by now we're getting down to colours that appear fairly rarely in the film itself. Marcellus's ex-partner, the one who had tried to double-cross him, is wearing a grey shirt, and the visitor to his house is also in a grey t-shirt. Marcellus himself wears a grey suit when he crosses the road, and there is an armed man who is hiding in Brett's apartment who is wearing grey-coloured trousers. These four instances all indicate a sudden change in the direction that the plot is taking. In every case, we find that something is happening that is unexpected. Then we have a combination of red, white, and blue. Now, these are rather interesting because they only appear twice in the film. The first time is in the garment that is worn by the pawnbroker when he causes both Butch and Marcellus to become his prisoners. And the second time is when Butch escapes and suddenly stops in front of a red, white, and blue flag of sorts, in which he makes the decision to turn around and rescue Marcellus rather than leave him to his fate. The lesson to be learned from red, white, and blue together is that the protagonists are, in fact, holding true to their deepest held values. It may seem a little odd to consider that the pawnbroker has a deeply held value of wanting to take unknown people hostage, but it certainly is in keeping with his general way of life. And similarly, Butch, in front of the red, white, and blue, remembers that he is an honourable man and so must do honourable things. The final colour that we have that only appears once of any significance in this film is black. And for black, the only person that we have that wears black as a costume is the character of the Gimp, who is only very, very distantly seen as a pet that Zed is using for whatever reason, because he doesn't actually play a part in the film apart from climbing out of a box and then being chained to the ceiling. He doesn't give warnings to Zed or the pawnbroker that Butch has managed to escape, nor does he try and prevent that escape himself. So what then have we learned from this film's colours? Firstly, red is danger in progress. Orange is an alarm warning. Blue is a planned strategy. Brown is instability and problem solving. Pink indicates some form of opportunity. Yellow requires some sort of thinking or planning or decision making, usually on the run. Green is the need for a considered or evaluation of what has just occurred. And purple is unrestrained stress or excitement that needs to be reined in. For black and white together, this is a balanced objectivity, whereas white itself is an unexpected potential, whereas white on its own is an unexpected potential difficulty to be faced. Grey indicates a sudden twist in the plot. Red, white, and blue together are being true to an ideal within your own psyche. And finally, black is an unspoken threat. So there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed listening to the colour analysis of Pulp Fiction. It was an interesting film. It's fairly long. And if you haven't seen it, I can highly recommend it. I certainly enjoyed it. even though it has a lot of graphic content. Anyway, I'd like to thank you for bearing with me as I go through yet another colour analysis of a film. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll come back next time for another one of these delvings into media. Certainly, you will be most welcome to join me again. See you next time. Bye.